Gotta speak.
Hi, hi on stream. Looks as though not many people are on the PlayChessCom server at the moment for this broadcast. Unless I've done something incredibly dumb again. No, I'm pretty sure I'm in the broadcast room. I'm glad you guys are on YouTube at least. There is someone on PlayChess. Hi, Mr. Red. Is there audio? Just want to check audio. Is there audio? Yeah, I didn't actually announce this broadcast in advance, but it is generally at 9:05 every Tuesday. Now it's 9:05 because there's a really good program on TV actually which ends at 9. So is there audio, Mr. Red? Any audio? Someone said on Play Chess like half an hour in there's no audio, and I stopped it and it turns out it was recording. Okay, I just wanted to try and get some acknowledgement about audio. Is there any audio? Anyone? Hi there. Oh, Danny boy, is there any audio? Any sound? Any sound? Can anyone tell me if there's any sound? Sorry, I know there is on YouTube, by the way. Audio's okay on PlayChess. We're ready to go. Good. Yeah, I usually kind of announce these in advance. YouTube, by the way, have a special page for broadcasts. You don't actually have to give the exact URL. Apparently there's this YouTube broadcasters page, and if I can let you bookmark this, and I'll say it periodically. I think it's this one. If you want to check every Tuesday and you don't know the exact URL, there's actually a broadcast page which says stream. For some reason it says stream is offline. I don't know why, but does this page actually work, or is that irrelevant to this? I was given this in some knowledge base. YouTube.com user kingscrusher /live. I think Google have been working on their live aspects, and that's a link given to any broadcaster, so you don't have to have the exact URL. But I've gone to it and it doesn't seem to be working. It says offline. I wonder if I refresh it, does it say offline? No, so I don't get that. Okay, fine. You got a YouTube streaming notification on your phone? If you subscribe, your phone will let you know when you're live. Oh, that's great. That's great. All right. Okay. Now tell me, everyone, just before I start, this is a live thing. I do wonder when I give technical variations, are you all bored with that? Because I could just try and speak about games very generally. I think sometimes these variations, you're never going to remember them. Most of you will never remember these variations like 2 weeks later. I don't know, do you prefer minimal variations? If I just ask you minimal variations tonight, or do you know what I mean? More on evaluations, minimal variation. I spelled that wrong. What I meant to say was minimal variations without the spelling mistake. Or not. Okay, I'll go with the flow, because sometimes games are really technically complex. It's a silly question actually to ask. All right, let's look at this game which did catch my attention, and it didn't catch my attention, by the way, from another YouTube channel. No, it didn't. It was from a chess-based report, just in case you're wondering. Unfortunately, there's 128 players playing in the World Cup knockout, and unfortunately, I didn't check any other YouTube channels today. I saw a Way e-game which looked interesting, and then I find out later on Reddit another channel's done that and uploaded it 12 hours before. Yeah, I know it's a massive feast of games, and unfortunately there are collisions. But I am not imitating any other channel. Never have done it, and don't want to. I'm not a copycat. But it was highlighted. The game which I want to show you was highlighted originally on a ChessBase report as an interesting game. So I got the gist of it just by playing through it on the ChessBase report, and yeah, it's ridiculous that a certain player who you've never heard of before, I assume most of you have never heard of, is now going to be the subject of two of my only videos of the World Cup. So his name is Yuri Vovk. Yuri Vovk. There's a pronunciation on Chess Games.com if you want to find out about Yuri Vovk. In fact, shall I play it? Yuri Vovk. I'll tell you how to pronounce it, because this comes up all the time. But Chess Games.com, there's some great people on Chess Games.com, and they have a pronunciations thing. And as long as I credit them, I think I can take some stuff from them. Let's have a look. Yuri Vovk.
Yuri Vovk.
Did anyone get that?
Yuri Vovk.
Does anyone disagree with that pronunciation? Tell me. Do you disagree with it?
Yuri Vovk.
Vovk. Anyway, he's the subject of two of my games. One's already on YouTube, and he was yeah, you might have seen that from earlier today. But this was his first round game, and I did allude to this in the game today. Now, there is something very strategic about the French defense. It's like the French defense games, especially in the classical variation, they're actually kind of easier to explain, to actually talk about strategically, because the French defense is a very strategic, opening. So let's have a look. Yuri Vovk, how does he play the French defense against Robson? And yeah, I mean, it's appealing, logically, because if you're into the strategy of chess, you'll respect more pawn structures and closed positions and maneuvering, and they can stick in the mind more than tactical games, which 2 weeks later you won't remember a thing, because tactical games are all based on the exact nuances of the position. But let's have a look at this game, because it's about improving pieces and subtle positional maneuvering. So Yuri Vovk against Ray Robson. So e4, e6. And to be honest, now I'm not belittling Robson, but he's a very tactical player. I've seen a lot of his games in the past, and I think sometimes they seem like random messes. I just don't, it's like chaos. It's like chaos theory if you look at a Ray Robson game a lot of the time. So he's a very, very tactical player. So anyway, d4, d5. So we have this knight c3, and it's not a winner, but a classical knight f6. So Yuri Vovk is encouraging the centre to close. And this is the sort of the French defence I vowed never to play again about 2 seasons ago, because I seem to lose every single game 2 seasons ago, and I switched to the Sicilian, which I think is more my style. And the reason for that is because in the Sicilian defence you've got a chance of a more tactical open position of getting rid of your pawns. Now this sort of position with e5, you really need to know how to play this style of position, because it is cramped, and you have this bad bishop in inverted commas, and you have a classic undermining strategy to try and undermine these pawns. So the next few moves, they're all really kind of logical, what you'd expect. Someone on stream saying I beat you, Robson, in a blitz match. I don't know if I did. If he's been playing on the ICC, maybe I'm not aware of that. I think I beat Shankland once. I did beat Shankland once, but anyway. So, and on Play Chess, Danny Boy has mentioned if Robson's a tactical player, perhaps he should play Bishop G5. Now you're right. Bishop G5 is perhaps more tactical. In Livebook, let's just connect to Livebook here. Bishop G5 is actually the most popular move. 9,000 games. Now E5 it's still very popular. It's nearly 7,000 games. Right, just E5. So but both these systems are really good, right? So here, F4, C5. Now, you don't have to be a tactical genius to understand this position, But what is useful is actually Nimzovich my system for the French defence in particular, because basically black is trying to undermine white's pawn chain at d4. So these moves you'll see a lot of the time, they're putting pressure on d4. So knight f3, we have knight c6. You see that d4 battle, bishop e3. But here, you might think a move like queen b6. Now queen b6 leads to actually to tactical chaos, and I think online, especially if you're playing against an engine abuser, which is more and more frequently recently, you don't want to play queen b6 because everyone seems to know all of a sudden about the knight a4 line. You know, go back 2-3 years ago, no one knew about this. This is a rare sideline in Informator where you sacrifice a piece here, yeah, and I got fantastic games. But this is two years or more. I was having fantastic games of black. You're a piece down here. I've got a ton of videos from this position. This is a very tactical way of playing it. Forget that anyway. So the more positional way, where you don't sacrifice a piece, is to play c takes d4 here. So c takes d4. Okay, you haven't yet committed the bishop, so after knight takes d4, now you play bishop c5. So you've avoided this strange, obscure piece sack line, which unfortunately everyone seems to know about now. Or maybe that's just the nature of theory. I don't know what's going on, but anyway, this is quite a respectable line to take on d4 immediately. C takes d4. Queen b6 is a rare bird. Bishop e7 just looks passive. So actually a6 is the most popular move. But c takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop c5. And in fact, I've just noticed something on Livebook. Someone's put a comment: black has to initiate an exchange to avoid a cramped position. All for Risco resign. Okay, I believe him, yes. So bishop c5, putting pressure on d4. And now white supports it. Now black just casually castled here. Now sometimes when you castle here, you're a bit worried about Greek gifts, but not in this position. There's enough pressure on d4 to interfere with white. White hasn't got a free hand just yet, but we still have this problem bishop on c8. Now Robson castles, and black tries to initiate the standard, looking queenside counterplay. So it starts off with a6. It's a very logical move, a6. Of course, black would be delighted if knight takes, because then we get that b file. White's not going to do that. White played knight b3. And now bishop b4, pinning that knight. Bishop d3, and it does start to look a little bit as though white's playing for some sort of attack. b5. Now here, the most usual move seems to be g4. It's quite a violent looking move. g4 is the most usual move. 39 games. Now Robson played knight d4, which is very rare. It's actually 2 games in live book, and probably one of them is this game. So the usual move is g4 here, with games continuing like this: bishop b7, and it looks as though white's building up some sort of attack here. So it looks a little bit scary. There's been a game or two from this sort of position, but anyway, this knight d4 was played. So looking at the knight, asking knight what to do, and we have bishop b7, and now knight takes c6, bishop takes c6. White reinforces the blockade on the d pawn now with bishop d4, and black now plays knight c5. Let's actually add a capitula as well, by the way. Just in case something tactical turns up. Not at the moment. We have queen f2 threatening the knight, and black now takes on d3, rook takes d3. So it does start to look scary for crude stuff emerging. It does start to look a little bit scary after rook takes d3. We have bishop e7. And if black gets time, I think he wants to play something like b4. Maybe this bishop to b5 would be useful. We see knight d1, and now b4. So at least it does seem as though there's some interesting options emerging. This one, or getting the pawns going. Maybe queen a5 is one of the more dubious ones as an idea. Okay, so we have rook h3, and it's very direct play from white. So black in theory has got the two bishops here, but this one doesn't look amazingly useful yet. Black has that semi-open c file, so it looks as though if black's going to survive this or counter-attack, have any dreams of counter-attack, maybe the c2 pawn should be involved here. So we see a move echoing that, rook c8. And of course the queen and rook are not going to mate on their own. In fact, that square is not available anyway. So knight e3, and it starts to look a little bit dangerous. We have the potential for white playing f5, f6, which should be crushing. If this position arises, that's basically 1-0. There isn't a defensive knight. This pawn chain is very aggressive looking. If a pawn reaches f6, I think that's the end of black. Let's have an example of this, of black just being terminated here. If black in the game played f5, but let's imagine queen a5. Now maybe white takes a little bit of time out actually to play king b1. And then where is black's attack? White basically has a free hand here. If black doesn't play f5, this position is really kind of scary. It justifies all of white's play. It's just much easier to play with white. And this is the sort of position where I was losing a few times a couple of seasons ago, because sometimes if you don't manage your counterplay well, you're just dead. And I think Mikhail Tal might have even said something like, the French defence, you know, if you make a mistake you're dead, or something to that effect, as though Sicilian defence for him was much easier to play. It's like you needed much higher precision in the French defence. But here, yeah, a precise move is needed, because yeah, you're going to get crushed on the king side otherwise. Okay, so f5, this is the move chosen, and it does seem to provide a basic lever to open up the king side. So g4, it does seem like a very logical move to open up the king side. F takes g4, but there's something very clever about this f5 in this particular position, and it's a really neat move here, which if you're a French defense player, you need to be able to turn the downsides of the opening, like this bad bishop, into a good bishop sometimes, and that surprise value can sometimes by itself almost win games. So here, what does black play in this position which turns the bad bishop into a good bishop? So if I give you 20 seconds, black to play, what would you play with black? Now I know you're probably not used to these terribly cramped positions, and you probably don't play the French defense, but just imagine you did. What would you try and play here with black, given the clues I've given? So black to play. So Yuri Vovk, I'll pronounce his name again.
Yuri Vovk.
He's playing black. What does he play here? All right, yeah. It's cool. Bishop e8. Now, actually, let's just examine some other suggestions. G5, G5. Really? In G5, yes, you're using a pin here, but I think okay. Apparently, F5 is really quite crushing with F6, and so you take here. Then there's knight h6 check. That's not good. And if you took the pawn, knight h6 check again, e5 check. It's pretty terminal. In fact, this diagonal features the game I put on YouTube today. So bishop f6, queen takes f5. This situation here is like a forced mate. It's coming up for a forced mate. So yeah, that doesn't help. G5 doesn't help really. So, but 100 points for bishop e8. Yeah, bishop e8 is the one. So this zigzagging of the bishop can sometimes occur in variations like you know, the Dutch stonewall. Because in the Dutch stonewall you sometimes get a bad bishop, and sometimes you can borrow strategies with how to manage your bad bishops from the Dutch stonewall to the French defence and vice versa. Because yes, it's a common problem, this bad bishop, but here it's a surprise weapon. It turns into a major asset because actually, you know, white hasn't got a light square bishop. And I've said this many times. If your opponent hasn't got a particular colour of bishop, then they're more sensitive on that colour complex, right? So c2 is an obvious target, and there's obvious cooperation going on here with the bishop and rook now. But a very tactical move from Robson, and I think it was in an Olympiad event I became aware of his surprise, you know, amazing, you know, resourceful play. But will it help him in this case? So he plays a surprising looking move, knight f6 check. Now black really wants to avoid the complications of the position, and you might ask, well, it's virtually forced actually, black's reply. If he doesn't want to draw, I think white can almost force a draw if he takes to the pawn anyway. If he takes to the pawn, you're opening up the g file. It looks pretty dangerous, and in fact I think white can kind of wrench out a draw by force in this line with a perpetual check, if nothing else. A lot of forcing moves, and that will be the end of that. It will be perpetual check time. No, black doesn't want to allow white the possibility of a forced draw, and he doesn't want to be mated on h7 either, and also he doesn't really want to play king f7. So by process of elimination, yeah, we end up with bishop takes f6, and after e takes f6, it looks as though this is actually quite dangerous dark square pressure. Now black played now bishop g6 though, and he's trying to use this pawn to shield his own king. So black is now threatening rook takes c2 check, by the way. There's a question on Play Chess by Danny Boy. Wouldn't f5 have been better than knight e3 on move 20? Okay, before we, okay, let's just check. Hold on. Sorry. F5 instead of knight e3. This position. Okay, one sec. That could apparently be taken there for bishop g5. But sorry. Okay, I should have read that earlier. But anyway, let's go back to the game. So we have this position with bishop g6. So bishop g6 does though seem to fall victim to another tactical idea, that white now plays f takes g7, positively inviting rook takes c2, because on rook takes c2 actually white is getting two rooks for the queen. He can take here and then take here, and actually with this dark square bishop centralized, the two rooks for the queen and also the bishop is more than enough, much more than enough. This is no good, this position for black, no good. On the check, yeah, white will start regrouping stuff, right, and coordinating. So no, that's not the idea. The brilliant idea of this is a pawn sack actually with rook f7. So using the pawn to shield the king, and just trying to emphasize the light square play, not the dark square play. So here, interestingly, white played another amazing looking resourceful move, it seems. White decided, I'm going to do a queen sack. I'm going to support my f4 pawn as a precursor to sacking the queen here for rook and bishop. If you haven't seen this game before, I'm going to ask you what you would play here for black, and I'll give you 500 points if you can guess it, especially if you haven't seen the game before. So black to play here. Now this is incredible. Now black to play an incredible move. I'll give you 500 points, virtual points, which mean nothing. You can't exchange them for anything. But I'll give you them, because it's easy for me to give you them. If you can find black's next move. So 20 seconds. Black to play. The match, if you come, it's Ray Robson, the US player Ray Robson, playing white against
Yuri Vovk.
Yeah, did you hear that? Does everyone hear the Yuri Vovk when I play it? Oh, Bianca, you've seen the game. Oh, come on. You must have seen the game. Who's seen the game? Tell me if you've seen the game when you do your move suggestion. If you want to play chess, please go away from the notation tab. Please go to the training tab if you want to play chess to avoid looking at the game score. Okay, any other move guesses? Move guesses here. Alright. Does anyone else want to say? Last chance to say your move? Alright, a few of you have said the move, okay. Okay. Well, okay, now if you were thinking rook takes c2, what is wrong with rook takes c2? Let's have a look. Rook takes c2. Actually, this turns out to be okay for black as well. From the engine point of view, I don't know, unless the engine's got this all wrong, this might be okay for black as well. With rook c7 check here. Rook c4 with the idea of queen b6. Apparently this might be okay, this position. Maybe black's got tactical ideas. Rook c3, right. That might be okay actually. But yeah, queen g5 was played. Queen g5. So it immediately threatens queen takes e5 because of the pin. So trying to use that pin, queen takes e5 threatened, but also the queen can join the bishop for a battery on c2 with queen f5. When I say battery, I mean kind of pieces joining forces, quite in elegant coordination on c2, right? So what does white do? Well, if he plays rook g1, there's queen takes e5, right? There's no actual compensation here because, yeah, what does white do? It's stuffed there. Okay, so he has to parry this. He played actually rook e3, so shifting away and attacking piece. But actually unpinning, right? White is now threatening, potentially, white is now threatening unpinning because it's not legally like pinned to the king. So rook takes c2 here would actually miserably fail here because we just play queen takes c2 and we're hitting the queen after. Yeah. Okay, so clue, it's not rook takes c2 here, but black to play in this position there is another clever move. Black to play another clever. Black to play here. Well, can you guess what Black's move here? Let's take away these arrows. What would you do in this position? Actually, there's a very tempting move based on what I've said, which I hope some of you might suggest. Let's have a look at that as well as what was played. Alright, it looks fairly logical based on what I've said to just create the battery, right? That might be what you consider an intuitive move, Queen F5. Does the intuitive move really have great impact? Maybe not, because White might do a defensive battery with Rook E2 and is like seemingly in actually the driving seat here. White might try and just create defensive stuff like this given enough time, because what is Black doing? He's a bit tied down. He can't use C7. There's this pawn here, this actual pawn here. So actually Queen F5 doesn't actually deliver that much here because of that defensive move. So there's another move here which is much more effective in this particular position. In fact, it's the only move which gives a significant advantage to Black. Can you see it? So yeah, Black to play here, right? So we've had the move Rook E3. Black to play here. So it's not Queen F5. So Queen F5 is just not having, it's not delivering because of Rook E2. Yeah. All right. The move is actually Bishop takes C2. So maintaining that pin. And if Queen takes, the thing is we're taking the Queen with check, and then we can move this Queen, etc. So Bishop takes C2 here. Now, sorry, if takes here, then just takes here, right? So this is interesting now. Bishop takes C2. Black is threatening things like Bishop E4 check. So we have the move King D2. So opposite colour bishops, but who's really got the attack? After Bishop G6, it looks as though White's more in trouble than Black now. Now White tries to fan the flames with a Rook exchange. So Rook C1, trying to exchange off a pair of rooks. That's taken. And now Black puts the battery in place, Queen F5, now threatening Queen B1 check. Queen E2. And the game continues to be brilliant here. I mean, I think Queen B1 is actually a good move, but this might even be better. D4. So what's the idea of D4? Let's see. If, well, in the game Rook B3 was played. If Bishop takes D4, then this is a loose piece liability actually. And off the check, Rook C7, Queen C1 is threatened. And this looks fairly bad. Now you might wonder, was that D4 really needed? Why not throw like the check in here and play like this. The thing is, the bishop's covering c7. That's the problem. So yeah, d4 got the bishop away in advance from c7. We need the rook to be able to come to c7 to cooperate with the queen. So d4 does that job. Rook b3. And then we have check. And another check here. And the thing is, this is a runaway pawn now. d3, it's a runaway pawn. So not only was it trying to deflect the bishop, it's also very useful here, this pawn. The pawn is literally like queening. If white takes, then that pawn's queening. There's no stopping it, isn't it? Or is there king d2? Nope. Check. Pawn's queening. Whatever happens, takes c1. Here, rook d1. Pawn's queening. You can see that rook d3. Yeah, we just take here. Okay, so forget that. White plays queen d1, but it's not good news to have a pawn here. So black's really in the driving seat here, and plays now rook d7. So driving through with d2 now. It's going to come along. Rook takes b4, d2 check, king e2, and in this position it's just winning. Bishop h5 check is winning, or taking on d1 is winning, because there's bishop h5 to follow. So white resigned. So that was quite an amazing, well, not a mega exciting, no, sorry, not an immortal game or anything. It was a notable game. It's what I'd call an immortal game. Let's not go into extreme hyperbole. It's just, you know, sometimes the French defence bad bishop triumphs, and this is an interesting example from the World Cup. Yeah. So will anyone remember this in a few weeks' time? That's another question. Will you remember anything from this game? This bad bishop wriggled to be the hero of the position. Pawn sacrifice, some coordination. And there you have it. There was a deflection, important deflection move, d4. You know, because black is in this cramped position. You know, white's dominating on, you know, it seems, but d4 really helped black turn the tables on white. And sometimes it also shows, you know, opposite coloured bishops are really dangerous for the attacking player. So I hope that was a notable game. Okay, should we have a look at another notable game? Now, one of the more exciting games I've heard about in another chess-based report, by the way, is Ding Liren. Now, I have featured Ding Liren on the channel before. He has played some brilliant stuff. I don't know what the tendency is, but it seems a lot of the top Chinese players seem to have quite an exciting attacking style. And Ding Liren is a fantastic example of such a player. Let's have a look at his game recently in the World Cup next. So I'll just find Ding Liren's game. Ding Liren. I'm just going to load it in. So it was against Ernesto Inarkiev. Let's see if I can get a pronunciation on that. Okay, his opponent was
Ernesto Inarkiev.
Have you all got that?
Ernesto Inarkiev.
Alright, fantastic site, chessgames.com. Thank you for providing that. Amazing stuff. And so Ding Liren, let's actually load the game in. Yeah, might as well load the game in. So I'll let you see the spelling. I'll do that again. So Ding Liren playing white against
Ernesto Inarkiev.
Right, you got that. Okay, so Ding Liren. I'm pretty sure Ding Liren's pronounced Ding Liren. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Let's have a quick check.
Ding Liren.
Huh?
Ding Liren.
Okay. Alright. Okay. I was close enough, yeah? Okay, so let's see. So in this game, c4 was played, the English opening from Liren. So I'm just going to call him Ernie, playing black, just for short. So Ernie, playing black, played e6. Actually, let's take white's perspective. Okay. Knight c3. There's no clue of who won there. Let's just take white's perspective. So d5. Now Liren plays d4. Knight f6. And we have the exchange line. C takes d. E takes d. And you might think, oh, this is crazy because you've unleashed this bishop on c8. Yeah, but there's other stuff going on in the position here. So bishop g5. c6. e3, bishop e7. This is well trodden. Bishop d3, knight bd7, knight ge2. Now that's interesting. Instead of what you might think, knight f3 more classical, and knight f3 is actually more well trodden. Also, queen c2 is really popular here. But yeah, we see knight ge2, and black exchanges off with knight h5 now, tries to exchange off that bishop, and does. Bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, and often queen c2 is played here. But we have queen, a rather strange looking move actually, very odd looking. And the last time I saw an odd looking move like this was in a Kasparov game, which was on the channel. Instead of queen c2, which looks like a logical battery, you know, of the bishop and queen, it looks like, isn't that natural just to batterize the queen and bishop? But actually queen d2 was played. It's like only 2 games in Livebook with queen d2, and one of them's like this game. Queen c2, there's like 358 games. So I don't know if there's some amazing preparation going on. Why is this like, it can't be a mouse slip because this is an over the board game, right? So queen d2, can you imagine queen d2? Would any of you honestly play queen d2? Seriously, here. If you knew that live book, there's over 300 games with queen c2. Not only is it the most trodden, it looks like normal, natural to play queen c2. Yeah? So what on earth is the idea of queen d2? I'm wondering, in fact, who played this queen d2 before? Hang on, let me find out. I'm intrigued. How do I find out? Oh, I don't know how at the moment. Okay, I'd like to find out at some point who played queen d2. Who in their right mind played that? Well, there's a way of finding out and I've forgotten. If anyone knows, just tell me. But anyway, so queen d2, knight b6. Alright, there is an advantage of this move, I guess, because it covers this f4 square, right, from this pesky knight. So white now plays f3. It looks as though it gives more support for this whole e4 plan, because you're covering f4, and if you're getting that e4, it's interesting. So maybe there's some advantage here, which is showing up. And instead of casting queenside, now white castles kingside. So it looks like a pleasant enough idea actually to play for e4. Black castles, rook a e1. This was the kind of plan, you know, Mikhail Botvinnik played a lot with great success. This slow e4 break. So we have bishop e6 and now e4. Okay, so the queen is covering usefully f4 square. D takes, f takes. And if white's given time here, it looks as though some juicy dark squares actually. I mean, you might think like something like this and maybe that with preparation on knight f6, get into the f6 square, maybe not h3 g4 no, if you value your king safety. But anyway, are the dark squares slightly vulnerable here? Rook ad8, we have b3, so covering that c4 square, bishop g4, queen e3, f6, a4, queen b4. Actually, tell me, has anyone seen this game already? Sorry, who's seen this game already? Because actually you're in for a really great combination later if you haven't seen it. This is a combination of the rounds I'm showing you. Has anyone seen this game already? We're talking combination of the entire World Cup. I'm about to show you. Soon. Are you very excited, yeah? sorry. I'll get back on track. So anyway, black is attacking this pawn. The storm's brewing here. Yeah, there's a storm brewing. The queen's away from the king, right? A little bit. Bishop c2. Now black gave up the light square bishop here for some strange reason. I'm not entirely sure that this was justified, but black did in fact give up his light square bishop with bishop takes e2. Perhaps he just wants to weaken d4. Quite a concession potentially though. And he fianchettos that knight for a moment. It covers e6. Is this bishop quite passive? It's like it seems to be locked in with its own pawn chain. And black might just want to put some central pressure with rook at fe8. And maybe even try and take the d5 square later, try and prompt some sort of d5 control later. So rook d1 was played. Queen e7. Are these pawns quite fragile? They're there in the center. Are they fragile to black just putting pressure on them? Well, and also in this position f5 might be threatened using the pin. So white gets out of that pin with queen c3. And with this move might be introducing a5 and some space gaining. We see a6. Now, let's see, hang on, a5 here is not such a problem. Maybe the knight's rerouting. It wasn't actually played. Instead, we see knight f4. And yeah, it does look as though something like a4 and b5, a5 and b4 rather, might be the precursors of doing something in this position. And you might think, well, actually, can't black kind of parry this knight? This isn't a question. Black played king h8 here. Now let's have a quick look at knight e6. This fails tactically, knight e6, to a forcing move, just taking, and queen b4, hitting the knight. Winning a pawn, actually. The queen is in no position to defend this, so this is actually just winning a pawn. And if knight d6 trying to counterattack, we just take here. Alright, so this is a subtle thing. You know, there's some pressure here. The queen's guarding b4, right? So knight e6 is out of the question at the moment. Black plays king h8. And actually, the queen shifts to the king side, queen h3. It's foregoing these possibilities on the queen side. Queen h3, threatening. Knight takes g6. Forking queen and king. Black parries that, queen f7. And then we have rook d3, as though rook g3 swinging the rook for knight takes g6. Does this give black a chance to create a defense? Knight c8 was played, so the knight can immediately swing to rescue g6 here, right? If rook g3, I think knight e7 just seems fair enough. So white played now on the queen side again, but it's not to do with minority attack as such. To play b4, you know, minority of pawns attacking the majority. It's to do with, you know, bishop b3 is introduced on that diagonal. Black hasn't got a light square bishop, so all of a sudden, with bishop b3 being introduced, it starts to be a little bit uncomfortable for the black king here. Storms are brewing for sure, and now black try to force white into a retreat or an exchange of pieces. Black played g5. So e6 square is covered. The h5 square is covered. If the knight goes back, then I think black might be okay with this sort of move, might be able to get away with this. But the knight didn't go back. We have instead bishop b3, and now after queen e8, isn't the knight going back, but even under worse circumstances? Because if the knight goes back now, isn't there just queen takes e4? Has white just blundered here? Because also it would seem extremely unattractive here to let black exchange off a couple of pieces with knight e6, because then black could exchange off knight takes and be, it seems, okay here. Where's the attack? There's no attack here. Where's the attack? Knight d6? There's pressure on e4. This is a miserable position. It's dead. You don't want this sort of position. So here is a critical point where you have a decision here after bishop b3, queen e8. It's obviously looked at in advance. Queen e8, you don't really want this, right? This wasn't the intention. And here's the start of the brilliant combination. The brilliant combination has no option really. If you look at a lot of the games of Tao, he says there was no option in a lot of his brilliant combinations because the option is just a rubbish position with, you know, no prospects. So I'm saying that knight e6 is a rubbish position with no prospects, and sometimes you do have to look at spectacular ideas just to have a bit of excitement in chess. So what does white play here? He doesn't want to play knight e6. Okay, sorry. White play. If I give you 20 seconds, what does white play in this position? Now, okay, and it's not queen takes h7, by the way. Alright, if you're saying queen takes h7, no, black just takes here. We haven't got a mate like that. This is not a brilliant combination. Because black has a resource, the strongest resource apparently is knight h5. And then we can get our king to g7. And here, knight e6 check is not convincing after king g6. And what are we doing with this rook? g4, queen e7, black's fine. That's the end of it. No, it's not that. Good idea though. I mean, interesting idea. But it's not queen takes h7. By the way, that was an accurate computer-like defense, because actually here, right, to be fair, knight h5 is the very best move, giving g7 immediately, right? If queen h5, well then we get our queen back with a small advantage, maybe not. This is just equal, this position. Black's got a lot of stuff going on. He's munching this pawn later, maybe. So, okay, no, it's not queen takes h7. It was queen h6. Queen h6. So, there's a prospect of this battery with rook h3 here for h7. But it seems strange that what was there the prospect of that battery? You know, black's not, you know, that dumb to take the knight, right? Yeah, so if he takes the knight, you know, or that materialistic to take the knight, not dumb. But okay, rook h3 here. I mean, there's queen takes e4. Isn't that protecting? But black actually tries to be, you know, maybe a little bit clever. The problem with g takes f4 is not rook h3, funny enough. Technically, I'm talking from an engine perspective, because of this queen takes e4. The problem is actually protecting e4 first to maintain the threat of rook h3 without the defensive resource queen takes e4. It's funny how one can take apparent time in such positions, even like a piece down, because black with a move here you might think has some sort of refutation now, like queen h5, but this is still a better way of playing it apparently, because this position, white now threatens this. Anyway, but that's all a moot point. If that was seen or not by the players, who knows. Black just took on e4 here, sidestepping that piece sack and defending h7. Right? So he wants to do something maybe slightly surprising to Ding Liren, not be too greedy, and just maintain a nice defensive posture here on h7. So white still builds up on h7 though with rook h3, right? And actually white is threatening something in this position after rook h3. Can you see what white is threatening in this position? White's play, what does black have to parry here? What is white threatening? Can you see the little mini combination white is threatening? Oh yeah, sorry, there is knight g6. Sorry, yeah, there's knight g6 anyway. White's threatening knight g6, as well as queen takes h7 and knight g6 mate. Sorry, but there's knight g6, so that's a bit of a silly question. Forget that. No, but okay, here's a more important thing. Given knight g6 can be extinguished by g takes f4, what's the problem here? Oh, apparently this is the best move from an engine perspective to have taken here, and if rook takes, not to play the check here because there's rook f1 and then there's rook h4, trying to drive the queen away from h7, and then there's rook d1, trying to drive this queen away. It's a similar resource to the game. I don't want to spoil that here. Alright, this is a game in itself. You want to try and drive this queen away from h7, but for the moment actually black didn't take on f4. In fact, this defense with queen b1 might not be sufficient either. Rook f1, there's a resource I think in this position. Rook h4, queen d3. Yeah, there's a resource in this position trying to drive the queen away from h7. Bishop c4. Okay, there is a way similar to the game. Sorry. Let's not spoil the game. Let's not go there. Black played knight e7 in this position as an alternative defense. So he's defending g6 and he's defending h7. But there's a truly spectacular way of trying to interrupt the queen defending h7 here. So we have a very primitive basic idea of chess of mating on h7. We've got the g8 escape square covered, but we've got this slight snag in the position we've got to overcome somehow. We've got to somehow get this queen to not protect h7. So this is the name of the game here. How do we stop the black queen defending h7? it's a slightly different resource to the variations I didn't want to show you. So I'm going to show you them after the resource I didn't want to show you. But for a moment, how does black in the game? Fantastic, actually. And the engine approves of this. How does white stop the queen defending h7? So white's play. Okay, I think some of you have said it. Right, so go on. Bishop c2 drags the queen by force to c2, right? So shooting the queen against h7. If queen takes d4, then this is hopeless, right, for black. He's going to get smashed if h7 goes. There might even be even stronger, knight e6. And this is diabolical, right? So anyway, the queen takes on c2, but now the point is, what is the point of putting the queen on c2? The queen which is defending h7, what is the point here? Okay, some of you mentioned the point, yeah. Knight d3, an interruption tactic, defended by the rook. But the funny thing about this, the hilarious thing about this, from white's perspective, is that the queen's actually a loose piece here. And the king seems to say, well, I can escape here myself with king g8. The funny thing about this position now is queen takes h7 check, king f7. Guess what white does? Although he hasn't got a major attack, can you see what great move white has? White's play, which unfortunately means even if he's not mating black king immediately, he's doing very well here. White's play. Yeah. Okay, so knight e5 check, knight e5, because we've got that pawn pin. It's check, and we've got the discovered attack. It's double attack on the queen. So actually, we can afford just to munch the queen here, and it's great for white in this position. Although another knight's extinguished, white's attack's really quite good here after the check. And then he takes that rook on f8. And now d takes e5, which means this pawn's actually ready to support the queen on squares like d6. Knight e6. It also supports f6, so rook f6. And now after queen h7, this is a really good move as well, actually. Black is kind of tied up here. Both the knights are kind of, unfortunately, that knight's pinned. And this knight really can't move without allowing something like rook d6. This is a really bad position. Black actually resigned here on move 39. Let's imagine knight f4. Then say check. This is really quite good for queen f7. That's unfortunately losing even more material. So yeah, black's completely like tied up here. If rook d8, I think we just put more pressure on. Well, we just play queen f7 again, actually. So both knights tortured. Then if knight f4, we've got rook d6. We can start winning the knights. Okay, so yeah, queen h7, and then that was quite convincing after queen h7. Black resigned. So yeah, I mean, some people think this is one of the more interesting notable games of the round. I don't know, do you think it was notable? Do you think it was quite exciting? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's you know, I think it shows that in chess, right? you could be close to these brilliant games, or you could be close to letting them fizzle out, and sometimes you've got to know when to go for it. And here's the position, you need to know when to go for it. Yeah, because this invitation to fizzle things out, it wasn't the idea, it was like peace sack. Now the variations I didn't want to show you to sort of, because I thought they had a related idea. Let's have a quick look at that for a moment. In this position, the engine at first thought G takes F4 was actually okay for black. I was a bit confused, as though it was equal, but I think it worked out this wasn't a good enough defense for black off the check. I think it worked out in this position. Rook H4, we're trying to tease the queen away from H7. I didn't want to show you what the engine had found, but what it had found here is actually quite remarkable as well, as another way of getting the queen off H7, and it does eventually give nearly like a +3 here to white. So this is bonus stuff outside of the game, the main line of the game. We have bishop c4, sorry, we have bishop c4, queen c2. Oh man, oh man. And in this position, can you see what white can play? This is an engine resource line. White's play and it for +3. This is behind the scenes, right, on this knight sack. White's play for +3. Can you see what white can play? Nearly +3. He's getting the queen. The engine's getting the queen. Well, interfering with the queen and H7. Can you see what white can play here? This is a variation of the game, right? Remember, bishop b3, we just play queen d3. So it's not bishop b3, we just play queen d3. Yeah? Not looking for bishop b3. No, it's not rook e1. No, it's not rook f5. No, it's not rook h3 on play chess. Ah, you haven't got the score sheet. This is in my analysis. I'm hiding away from the play chess people now. You can't see this move, can you? You cannot see this move. Bishop a2. Threat. Bishop b1. Skewering the queen to the h7 square. What does black play here? Actually, rook g8 is given us one idea, but I don't see how. I'm sorry, we're going into the matrix here. Rook g8 is actually a defensive idea because bishop b1, there's queen takes g2 check, knight f5 check, and black escapes with his life here. But the thing is, white doesn't need to do that on rook g8, by the way. On rook g8 we have a better move. We first played g3 to extinguish that, so we're still threatening bishop b1, and now black is stuffed without that resource. Rook takes g2. So black is truly stuffed. Give black an extra move here, and apparently in this position he can't do anything with it. He really can't do anything with the extra move to stop bishop b1. Can you believe this? I mean, these resources, a lot of the time that the engine comes up with, are prophylaxis resources to shut out a defensive resource, and daring to give the opponent an extra move and saying, look, you can't do anything with this extra move. I've just cut out your key defensive resource. So here, defend against bishop b1 now. Go on, defend against bishop b1 now. I've given you an extra move. I've just played the casual move in this position, a piece down, g3. It's prophylaxis against queen takes g2 check. What do you play now with black? f5, knight f5? Knight f5, I'll mate you. Queen takes h7. You want to play f5? I'll mate you. So what do you play here with black? Has anyone got any ideas for black? Ideas for black? It's black seems to be busted here, beyond all doubt. Knight e8, bishop b1 now with huge effects. Black would have to like sacrifice the queen. So anyway, yeah, there's this thing I didn't want to show you, but it was behind the scenes. So are you so glad that I've shown you this piece acceptance line, which was bypassed in the game? So here, see, how does that go? Queen takes e4. So he played knight e7 instead of g takes f4, because we have this line, rook takes f4. Apparently this is a winning position. On the check we get something similar going on here, with the queen being chased away from h7 with rook h4, and now bishop c4 to put the queen here, and now let's move bishop a2. And yeah, on rook g8 we play a prophylaxis move against queen g2, we play g3, and we're really going to play bishop b1 now. I don't know, I think in software engineering it's like, if this was like software, it's like making sure there's no ways of hacking the system. It's like, it's like, I don't know, it's like this prophylaxis is making sure there's no tricky escapes for black. Yeah, bishop b1 on the cards. There's nothing for black to do here. But anyway, I think I'm carrying on more on too much about this, maybe. But it's fascinating. I don't know. It's because it seems to be like a primitive idea to get working a primitive idea on h7. Yeah, I mean, if this is what you need to get it working, then because black does have that semi-open G file, you know, in principle, that could be dangerous for the king. Yeah. By the way, queen g6, we just play queen takes g6. Remember that pawn's pinned. Okay, does anyone want to have a look at another game? Was there another game? Yeah, Michael Adams stayed in. I don't know if should we have a look at the Adams game, or we'll carry on next week? Michael Adams managed to stay in apparently. He's the UK's top player, top grandmaster. Do you want to have a look at another game? Sorry, knight f4. Well, if you read chessbase.com, you know, chessbase.com for news, they've got great articles about the World Cup. Knight h5 followed by rook g7. Okay, let's test that one. You want to play knight h5. Again, we play this move bishop b1, and what do you play here? If queen takes h5, I think you might be right that black is given a resource here, but this is still painful. It's still like +4, but even better than taking that knight is bishop b1 apparently, because we're skewering the queen against h7, right? Yeah, what you want to have a look at the Michael Adams game. I only briefly went over the Michael Adams game, but he needed to stay in it. I mean, it wasn't in a chess-based report. I don't know, it might have been mentioned that he stayed in, so I did quickly check out that game. You want to have a look at the Michael Adams game, or next week? Who wants to carry on? Carry on next week. Do you want to vote now? I don't mind carrying this on and play chess. I hope it doesn't crash like last time. Alright, I have some vague ideas about Adam's game. I need like basic playthrough game or something. Adams. I had this party during the Lloyd's Bet Masters many years back when I was 18. I'm over 40 now, but Michael Adams was there. He had lost to Sadler, I think, in this tournament in London. He was a bit pissed off. I was promising, oh, can you show me the Sadler game? He didn't really want to go over it, but he did a little bit. Yeah, actually, it was really cool to get him to go over a game. No, he's a brilliant positional player, fantastic. Let's have a look. Yeah, he's managed to. He lost the first game to. Let's get the pronunciations as well, just for a laugh, shall we? So, who was he playing? Okay, who was he playing? Now, my attempt at it would be Victor Lasnicka. Let's have a look. Is there a pronunciation available? Oh no, there isn't. Oh no. Okay, that's a shame. Huh. Alright. Anyway, I can tell you about him. Victor Lasnicka was FM in 2002, GM in 2006, Czech champion in 2006. He was born in the Czech Republic. Alright, he's 27 years old, so a bit younger at the moment than Adams. Well, younger than Adams. So let's see what happened. E4, and we have a Sicilian defense. Knight F3, E6. We have an open Sicilian. C takes, knight takes, knight C6. We have knight C3 here, A6. And maybe slightly unusual, I mean the most usual move apparently in live book is bishop E2. Adams played knight takes C6. And I don't know, at some point you may have had some game annotated where they say you don't play this as white because you're dragging another pawn to the centre. But this has been seen over 1,000 times, taking this. Because there's other considerations. This bishop's kind of bad here. White's got a lead in development. So yeah, bishop D3, D5. This has been seen loads of times before. White castles. Knight F6. Now the usual move apparently here is rook E1. There's about 300 games of rook E1. There's about 200 of queen E2. Adams played actually queen F3, which looks like a sensible move. Queen F3. Why doesn't Queen F3 look as though why has it been played less? Okay, Queen F3. We have Bishop E7. Bishop E7. And in the game, the Queen slightly went to G3. Also, there's been some games with E5, but here Queen G3. Black castled. And now Bishop H6 was played, yes, threatening mate. I don't know why. I'm choosing these games where players with white are very crude and primitive. The 3 games I've gone over so far from the World Cup all include white going for a direct mate on either H7 or G7. I know, I don't know why. The simplicity appeals to me. Okay. But the first question here is, can black defend? Well, the first question I had, can black actually play knight H5? As black, would you be considering knight H5? The thing is, knight H5 doesn't work too well, apparently. Queen G4, because we're threatening the knight, right? So the knight actually can't go back, because then we mate. And if we sidestep now, white just gets the advantage with taking, and is like won a pawn or something. He's just won a pawn. So with black not having compensation. So yeah, knight H5 is not working. So knight E8 is played. That's the only thing that's been played in that position 8 times. And now we're in 6 game territory with what was played. Bishop F4, 6 games here, including this one. Bishop H4. Now the queen goes to F3. Bishop E7. And here, another aspect of the position is highlighted. There doesn't have to be all about black's king. You know, Adams is a positional player, right? It doesn't all have to be about black's king slaughtering it. You know, you can create some diversionary tactics on the other side of the board. So how will you create some diversionary ideas or positional play on the other side of the board? White's play, positional move. What would you play here? Look at black's pawns. They're all on light squares. All on light squares, right? Statistically. What's a nice dark square? I'll give you a clue. That's my clue. What would you play with white to exploit a nice dark, juicy dark square on the queen's side for a moment? I can give you another clue. This c5 square. How would you exploit this c5 square? White play. Oh god, test you on a positional move, no one can get it. Yeah, is that the story here? A positional move, no one gets it. I've highlighted the square you want to control. Okay, knight a4, yes. I've tried to give you some clues. Yeah, knight a4. And you might wonder, this has got nothing to do with black's king, right? It's got nothing whatsoever to do with black's king. Okay, but it's a cause for concern, isn't it? It's a cause for concern, poking at these dark squares. Knight f6. And now we have b3. White doesn't seem to be afraid of losing e4 here. Let's see, if black takes on e4, he didn't. He played queen a5. If black takes on e4, then the pawn structure is kind of shredded. Queen d5, this position, we've got things like knight b6. It's troublesome. Here. This is nice for white. Look at these pawns, they're kind of not too healthy. So yeah, black's not tempted to take on e4. He plays queen a5. But this is a resource, an expensive resource away from the king, right? There's some distance here. e5, chasing the knight away. And now we have queen g3. And this is quite a big difference. White has achieved something. He's distracted, especially this queen, away from the king, and is again now threatening actually bishop h6, which would win the exchange, right? So black sidesteps that with rook e8. And then we have the move h4, and it seems there's a bind on the position here where white might be actually going for h5 now. We have c5, where black might be threatening c4. So that stops c4, and the black pawns are now fixed. And it looks as though, and I've had this with black myself, it looks as though with black, I had this against an IM Quillen, this sort of similar position where I'm thinking, aren't I making progress? I've got this beautiful bishop on this diagonal. Isn't black making like positional progress here? The thing is, the pawns are now fixed. They are really fixed, and this knight's actually pretty neat there on a4. We have h5, which is actually now threatening what? What is white? What is one of white's? What is white threatening with h5? Can you see the combination that white is now threatening after he's just played h5? Why is this h pawn all of a sudden quite important? Yeah, white's not threatening h6 as such. White's threatening to increase the impact of bishop h6 because we can take here and then sleekily play h6. Right, that's what white's threatening, and that'll be nasty. Now, black actually plays what seems to be a cunning defensive move in this position, queen c7, against that, designed against that. because actually I think black can defend via e5. Queen takes e5, defending. So we have white supporting that to take away that defensive resource. And now black, in light of this, plays actually in advance bishop f8. But now we have bishop g5, and actually a lot of dark squares are being put under scrutiny here. We have the move g6 being played. And now f4. And it seems as though black's playing some sort of weird French defense here. He seems to be without counterplay, devoid of counterplay here. White is now threatening things like bishop f6, and he's just going to sack his bishop on g6. It seems pretty nasty. Black tries to defend this in advance and it's the engine top choice defensive move, bishop g7. If he doesn't play bishop g7, he's really going to get smashed up here. You know, rook b8, maybe even hg first. Here, maybe even stronger, and actually just crawl to the h file. Okay, so f4, bishop g7. But now we do have this queen h4, right, with the idea of taking, and actually, yeah, with the pawns fixed, we can use this h file. And what I find amusing about this is how many of us would have played knight a4 earlier, because we would have ruled out this idea of knight a4 fixing these pawns, right? Because we would have given black this active bishop, right? We might have ruled that out. But it turns out here that instead of trying to play for f5, because every time you try and play for f5 you drop e5, it turns out here that really white is now threatening king f2, rook h1 and hg. And what exactly does black do about this? The thing is, the pawns are committed in the centre, and it's like there's no central counterplay against the white king just stepping out here and arranging the battery on the h file. This really does seem the case here. Forget this bishop. It's this king f2 and rook h1, which seems undefendable. If you had this position with black, do you know that the position is now +3 for white? The position actually seems technically undefendable. There doesn't seem to be central counterplay. Bishop b7, white just plays, I think I've given you a clue, so I'm going to say it, king f2. Simple idea, rook h1 and hg. And the bishop on g5 is cutting out the escape route of the king, right? So, you know, is Adams a positional player or an attacking player? Because, you know, does the attacking player find the move knight a4 earlier? It shook out black's potential counterplay in the centre to allow this h-file attack. So rook f8 now was played. Yeah, it looks like slaughterhouse, rook h1. You know, hg's threatened, right? So black tries that typical defensive move that we saw in a previous successful French defense game, f5. Doesn't work out so well here. White doesn't need to play e takes f6. Yes, that will let... it's still good for white. No, white plays even more decisively. hg, hg. And even I know about this tactical idea. Even I know about it. Check. What does white play here to finish the game? White to play and win. It's +10 after this next move. Can you see? I definitely have played this, at least in Blitz, this sort of attacking idea many times. You've buried your queen on h7 for what? Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah, rook h6. Rook h6, you've pinned that bishop. So rook h6 here is crushing. So there's no rook h8. It doesn't work. Queen takes. And we can start munching and destroying black totally. It's forced mating free here. Alright, now the question is, just as a sanity check, was really knight a4 pivotal to this attack? Let's have a quick sanity check. By the way, is everyone convinced this is lost? Here we just take the bishop, if nothing else. But let's have a quick sanity check about this, right? Let's just go back and pretend knight a4 wasn't played. We have this position, right? We have some leaning on the king side. So knight a4 was played here. So the lesser mortals, right? Let's have a look at the lesser mortals we'll play. You want to play like e5. Let's try and do it without it. No, what does black do to defend? It still seems a tricky position. Black might have f5, in fact. If black just plays f5, where's white's attack? It's difficult to envisage attacking black here. If e takes, knight takes, and it seems, you know, black's going to get an active position. So hang on a sec. Knight a4 might just be directly stopping something like f5. If f5 is played here, then what? We get some nice dark squares to play with. We just play on the dark squares. Getting things like queen e7, knight b6. We're playing on all the dark squares here. I don't know, maybe knight a4 is actually primarily designed against f5, but later, you know, by putting also the pawns, I'm just wondering, putting the pawns there, if the pawns hadn't gone to d4, well, white's getting this construction where he sees the pawns here and here, and that's, once you get the pawns there and there, it's a signal that you can literally, although you're given that bishop scope on the diagonal, you can get a construction where you can like peel open the H file, it seems. Well, from the evidence of this game. But the other point is, after h5, why isn't a move like f6 working? Well, actually here, bishop takes h7. This is nasty. This is not working apparently. You drop the rook. So f6 stops working after a while completely anyway. It stops working as a resource. f5, same thing. E takes. It stopped working. There's too much pressure on black king here. These pawns are not helping black's counterplay. I just wonder how we would do it without the pawns there. Pawns here, it's not so clear cut. I don't know how we attack black here. Alright, it's just some fascination. Adam's made it look easy, but it seems... Can we say that in some cases fixing the opponent's pawn structure can help a kingside attack? Is that really what we're saying? That if we fix the opponent's pawn structure, we minimize their counterplay and potential checks against your own king, then maybe that helps the attack in some way. But anyway, I don't know. You know, maybe there's something to gain from this game. I mean, but this doesn't seem like a convincing attack here. The way the game evolved with black's pawns on c4, with black pawns on c5 and d4, is much more convincing for the attack now. This position here is just, it seems to be over after king f2. White's just got a very simple plan of peeling open the H file. F6 here, by the way, we didn't check out. F6, just HG, we're just crushing on the H file. Again, we've got the check, and I think, oh here, E takes F6. It's butchery. Bishop takes G6. Yeah, we're just butchering. Okay, so I haven't really, I don't think any other games I've really checked out that much. So it's been like an hour 40 anyway. So I hope you got something from these 3 games. Alright, so see you next week. Good luck in chess. Let's maybe look at some more notable games from the World Cup next week. So 9:05, by the way. 9:05, because there's this very dramatic program on TV. I'm not around at 9 o'clock. Okay, I'm 5 minutes past 9 next Tuesday. Okay, comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much. Any further comments or questions rather on YouTube? See you next week.